So here we are Monday afternoon, just a little bit later than normal, owing to some technical difficulties. But thanks
Yes.
to our combined wit and wisdom, we
Yeah.
managed to get the show on the road.
Yeah.
How are you this afternoon, Pat?
I'm grand, Jude. It's the weather update that it's starting to rain here now, so it's not as nice as the last day we're talking, which was beautiful. Anyway, technical glitches, Jude. We're the equivalent, of smoke signals. Just kick it and hope it works.
Yeah, carrier pigeon, I think, might be more reliable.
Technology, yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, anyway. Well, we've two interesting subjects today, and they're both getting an awful lot of coverage. One is a local story, you could call it, I suppose, and the other is an international story. The local story is the case of Roy Greenslade, the journalist who wrote for The Guardian, was the editor of the Daily Mirror, was it? And he was a lecturer for years in City University, I think, in London, on journalistic ethics. Now, he has come out, you correct me in this, Pat, if I got this wrong. He has come out and said that during the time he was writing, he was a supporter of the IRA. Have I got that right?
Basically, he said he understood their right to take the action they did, basically,
Yeah. Now, that has created a huge uproar. In fact, just before I came to to talk with you, Talkback, I don't know if you caught it, was on.
I did actually.
And they had Ruth Dudley Edwards and Mike Nesbitt on, and they were both excoriating. And they listed, for example, Mike Nesbitt listed all the IRA atrocities and said, that's appalling, and that people should come clean and put a principle. That's what he believed. He should put his money where his mouth is, so to speak, and admit to his sympathies. That was a fraud, really, that he conducted for a long time. Now, there's a second thing connected with this whole thing, which is the Maria Cahill case. But just let's talk about Roy Greenslade. And should he, do you think, have stated his sympathies during the years when he was writing for The Guardian and other newspapers?
I thought, Jude, it had been almost impossible back in the day. Like, it's all very well for people to talk, but we all have to make a living. And Roy Greenslade's entitled to his political opinion. By the way, I almost had a laugh when I heard when you hear Ruth Dudley Edwards pontificating to anyone. Jude, I've put it on the record a million times. I am not an IRA supporter, but by God, every time I listen to Ruth Dudley Edwards, I feel like joining up right away. Here's the simple thing: the Northern State, Jude, no matter what way you come at it, 50 years of one-party state government. A police force that was 93% unionist and Protestant, B specials, 100% unionist and Protestant, discrimination, sectarianism, you name it. The IRA did not come out of a vacuum, and I'm not supporting them, but I understand why people joined it. Roy Greenslade said, I think, by the way, I should declare a wee bit of an interest here. I know Roy Greenslade. I've actually been out to dinner with him on a couple of occasions and so on. But Roy Greenslade, after Bloody Sunday, he said he copped on why nationalists and Republicans reacted like they did. The other thing as well, he's married to a Donegal woman, actually a lovely woman, Noreen Taylor, and he has spent much of his time living in Ramelton and Donegal. So Roy, unlike a lot of people sitting in London, actually knows what he's talking about. Now, I think Ruth Dudley Edwards said today that he should have put a sort of health warning. I support the IRA. Well, why the hell doesn't she put in her? I'm a West Brit.
She doesn't have to.
But say I'm a unionist. No, like everybody comes with their.
Pat, they say that the IRA was illegal. This is Mike Nesbitt said that. It was an illegal organization.
And hold on, so was the Palestinian Liberation Organizations illegal. So was the ANC in South Africa and so on. I am not, but hey, someone, you put on a uniform and you shoot somebody dead, that's legal. You don't put on a uniform and you shoot somebody dead, that's illegal. What happened in Northern Ireland wasn't particularly legal either. Hitler, he had legality on his side all the way. That didn't make it right. So, you find yourself sometimes almost standing up for the IRA when you really don't want to, but because the hypocrisy of the other side, By the way, Jude, some of the people are having a go at Roy Greenslade should really have a serious look at themselves, particularly people like Ruth Dudley Edwards.
Well, do you think that Ruth Dudley Edwards and others, Mike Nesbitt and so on, when they write pieces, that they should state the fact, I am a unionist sympathizer, or I am a unionist member?
What they're basically, Roy Greenslade was well aware, which, by the way, is 100% right. Had he stuck on 1970, that I am a supporter of the IRA, that I believe they have the right to, by force of arms, to oppose British rule in Ireland, his career would have been, he had been cleaning streets somewhere about London, I would presume, and he certainly would never had a career. And you know it as well, even back in the day, to say that, there was once the state was involved, to state at any level of British society that you opposed, the war against these terrorists. I was said, you may as well go out and, get a noose around your neck in terms of your career.
Well, I noticed that when Mike Nesbitt listed various atrocities, and there were some terrible things done by the IRA. He listed Bloody Friday.
Can I make one point? Mike Nesbitt, I'll take Mike Nesbitt, because what he said, Mike Nesbitt has a fair point, but he just should say, I'm a unionist, I'm coming at it for a unionist perspective. If he wants Roy Greenslade to do it, Roy Greenslade should possibly have said, yeah, I'm an IRA supporter, but I don't think Mike Nesbitt, back in the day when he was up front with presenting programs on UTV, didn't say, by the way, I'm a unionist.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking back to those days, and I have a feeling, well, certainly if you would declare yourself to be an IRA supporter, you would have made yourself a target immediatay, I would have thought. Yeah. Was it illegal? Was it illegal to be a sympathizer?
I don't think it was illegal to be a supporter. By the way, I think he said he's now a member of Sinn Féin. And by the way, here's the other thing which I find really, really odd. Roy Greenslade did not, Jude, at any stage, to my knowledge, hide the fact that he was very much a supporter of Irish unity, that he supported Republicans. I have had numerous conversations, and like it's years since the last chatting to you, Roy, but on the conversations I had with him, I remember very clearly he didn't hide his light under a bushel at all. And apparently he is on record, even to quote Ruth Dudley Edwards, he said back in the day that he had no bother stating out publicly that apparently he was referred to in private eye or something as Roy the Provo. So, what's the big deal?
Well, I think that the thing they were getting at, Mike Nesbitt and Ruth Dudley Edwards, was not so much that he was in favour of a united Ireland, but that he was supportive of a group who were engaged in violent activity in order to get to that point, or try to get to that point.
But there's a lot of people here in Ireland. I remember talking to Martin McGuinness, and Martin McGuinness told me, wait a minute, you can have your old moral point of view. He said, I can go and look at my God in the face, and he says, I can go to Mass every Sunday and go to Holy Communion. I have no problem with my conscience. There's a war on, and the war came to us. We did not go looking for it.
Yeah. I thought it struck me too was that essentially, the IRA campaign was essentially a guerrilla war. And every so often you would have somebody in the unionist community saying how cowardly they were and they wouldn't wear a uniform and so on. But if you remember the greatest guerrilla leader of all time, maybe not, Mao Zedong, he said that the freedom fighters, he called them, swam through the ocean of its people. That is to say, it was able to operate because it had the sympathy of the communities that it moved through. And I think that's a key point that many people forget. The IRA wouldn't have lasted 10 days, never mind, 3 decades, if it didn't have the either active or implicit or passive sympathy of the people among whom it lived.
Mike Nesbitt's this one that's sort of saying, I would support a legal right to Irish unity. I remember during the time of the water protests in the Republic of Ireland, people were told, you can protest about the people's putting in the meters at your house, but you have to stay someone like 10 meters away from. Like, Jude, that's a sort of protest without any protest. If you know what I mean. There was nothing changing in the Northern Ireland state, and a lot of Irish Catholic nationalist type people said they had enough and they supported IRA. Now, I personally don't agree with that, but I can understand why people do it, and I've understood why people join the IRA. And
Do you think,
sorry, go ahead. No,
go ahead.
yeah.
Well, finish what you're saying, Pat, and then I'll ask
No,
you.
but basically, I think that the hypocrisy of some of this here, Jude, like this is an ancient conflict. Just because you're British on the British side, hey, look at Bloody Sunday, look at Ballymurphy, look at the shooting deads of people, look at him, the shoot to kill policy. No, let's have a bit of equivalency here. This was not a one-sided IRA bad guys, British security forces good guys, RUC good guys. You're taking the piss when you come out of that. What about the Glenanne gang and all that sort of stuff? Like this, take some sort of thing like this in isolation and just throw it out there. That Roy Greenslade was the bad guy, and Ruth Dudley Edwards, who went at the time of the Drum Cree protest, was up sort of almost eulogizing Billy Wright and people like that. Give us a break.
Was she?
Well, she did interviews with them, and they were very sympathetic. These are people looking to simply walk the Queen's Highway, and these rampant Republicans and all this sort of rubbish,
Yeah. Final question before we go to the Maria Cahill thing briefly is, do you think that we would have got us as far as we did in terms of shared government in Stormont, although it's not very successful, but it does exist? Would we have had power sharing without violence, without the IRA?
Jude, I don't know. So there are many today. I think the IRA actually put things back around, put things forward. And then the other side of the story, nothing was happening in '68. There was, I was writing a wee bit yesterday. I'm tired, about the setting up. It wasn't October 5th, '68. It really started, and Derry. Derry was a sort of the what would you say, the mother of the insurrection, and the child that brought in was the sighting of the university in what was 65, 66. The nationalist people saw then, wait a minute, it was the most bigoted sectarian decision. They put a university not in where there was already a sort of a McGee College. They give it to Coleraine, a wee market town in the middle of nowhere. Just Derry was ensuring Derry was getting nothing. So, Jude, all those things fed into this narrative or this story or this, whatever you want to call it, that people felt that, hey, wait a minute, this is an artificially created state where we're all, someone once described it as the Catholic nationalist people were the white Negroes of the northern state, and they were always going to be subject. So to answer your question, I can never get my head around that. There are days I understand why people did what they did, but there's other days I sort of said, I wonder, like, I agree sort of with Hume's argument that the violence has actually stopped things moving forward.
Well, there are a lot of people who think differently. Like some people I know who have talked about, they would say, for example, that the civil rights movement, as it were, that is to say, the SDLP and the people who believed in what they call constitutional nationalism, that they brought things to the point where you had the Sunningdale Agreement, which essentially was a form of power sharing, and a Council of Ireland along with it. But that was collapsed inside, a year, 18 months, because of violent loyalist opposition. And you had the famous Ulster workers' strike. But if you fast forward then to the Good Friday Agreement, didn't Seamus Mallon say something about Sunningdale for slow learners?
Slow learners,
that this was something that there were people who were resisting it. But you see, McGuinness said that it would be the IRA that would achieve things. Some people would say it was the IRA over those decades and between Sunningdale and the Good Friday Agreement that they saw that they couldn't defeat them, and that pressed them into coming to an accommodation.
Well, did you see that whole thing about, like, you're right about what was the Ulster Workers' Council strike basically brought down Sunningdale. Now, the other side of the story, if you were dependent on Harold Wilson and Ted Heath and all to force the unionists to do a fair deal, it didn't seem to work. Now, Jude, straight up, I don't know. Will you ever get what was the right answer? There, I remember clearly talking to both McGuinness and you, and they were diametrically opposed. McGuinness would have told you nothing was changing. That all these appeals to for the unions to do the right thing was going nowhere. The British government, sure, that you weren't even allowed to raise issues from Northern Ireland at Westminster. What the 50 years of unionist rule and just led to sort of subjugation and oppression.
Yeah.
And Hume said after civil rights movement in America, that the media in Britain were on the side of the nationalists, that they were pushing an open door and was all this sort of stuff. Take your pick.
Yeah, I don't know if I could quite. I think the facts of history sort of contradict that. And to be honest, in most places where you have radical reform, it's not brought about by peaceful means. Now, there are exceptions to that. But in most places, it's only when people take to the streets with weapons. It's only when people start dying that the media begin to really pay attention. Yeah. However, let's just go on very briefly now, because we've spent an awful lot of time on that, to the Maria Cahill angle on this, because she has jumped into this and has said that Roy Greenslade, what was it? Oh yeah, he wrote.
I wrote an article in the Guardian where he said that
back in 2014
that the political angle should have been explored further. That she that she had joined a dissident group or something like this, and she had a bit of an agenda. She's saying that was vindictive and mean, and it was deliberately aimed at what would you say, sort of smearing her. Now, Jude, like what happened to Maria Cahill, and I have to take her word for it, happened to her, and there's no doubt about it. That was beyond acceptable.
Can I interrupt you? You say you have to take Maria Cahill's word for it.
Yeah, well, I've no reason to doubt her.
Well, I'm looking at a thing here that says that she complained. At 16, she was repeatedly raped by an IRA man. She complained to the police in 2010, which is quite a while after being a 16-year-old. But the case was dropped 4 years later when she withdrew her support for the prosecution. And the person who was accused of raping her, somebody called Martin Morris, I guess an IRA man or an ex-IRA man, was acquitted.
Yeah.
Now, if those two things are true, if she dropped her case against this guy, and if somehow or another this guy was acquitted in court in any case, how would you then need to take Maria Cahill's word for it?
No, well, I'll stand corrected because I stood up. I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware that anybody had gone to court.
Well, I just pulled those two things out.
It must have slipped my mind because I genuinely don't remember that. I was simply going on the basis that this woman is printed out on RT and various other places regularly to have a go at the IRA for what they done to her. And as far as I recall, it's almost accepted as confirmed that this is what happened there. Now, I am open to correction on that.
Well, again, I'm very hazy on it, but I must say I was very struck by these 2 points that I pulled up when I did Google for it. A couple of articles, which, as I say, said this, that she claimed she was raped. She went to the police in 2010. The case was dropped 4 years later when she withdrew her support for the prosecution. Now, that's what I read. It may not be true.
Jude, if that is accurate, then Maria Cahill should come out and say, but having said that, Jude, somewhere in the back of my head, if somebody's raped, you can't always prove these things, And now, in fairness, everybody's entitled to the presumption of innocence. The guy who got charged,
absolutely,
he can turn around and say, what do you call it? What about my rights and all this?
Well, I think that's what I'm sort of stressing here. There is a tendency to be sympathetic with somebody who claims they've been raped, but you really do have to have evidence for things.
Yeah.
I could say you're a bigamist, or you're a fraudster, or you evade taxes. Well, that's one thing, but I mean, where's my evidence? You have to have evidence. It doesn't make sense otherwise. Yeah. I mean, it really.
The only thing, Jude, is what happens in a rape situation. There's usually not an audience, and proving it is very difficult.
Well, in that case, how are you suggesting you simply take the word of the person who says it?
No. You have to have some sort of standards for it because because then it usually has a he says, she says, and a hell of a lot of things it's circumstantial, and
Well, the one thing that I noticed was that from that article in 2014 by Roy Greenslade, he said that people were too willing to accept her story and didn't point to countervailing evidence. And the fact that she was very sympathetic, she was a former member of a dissident group who were violently anti.
By the way, you just raised something that nobody's. I go through Greenslade's articles and say, no, it's the work speaks first. Not his, Mike Nesbitt is a journalist. Is a unionist. As long as he done his job fairly, I don't care. Ruth Dudley Edwards, she's West Britain, in my opinion. She's a unionist as well. As long as she does her work fairly, I have no opinion. Why should I put it differently to Roy Greenslade?
Yeah.
As long as his work, is above board, and by the way, I would suggest 98-99% of it is impeccable because I've read quite a lot of his stuff and it's excellent.
He's a very good writer, I must say. Okay, with reluctance, Pat, we pull ourselves away with that very sort of sad and seamy and sort of nasty sort of topic. I must say, finally, I would agree with you that I've admired Greenslade's writing for a long time, and I think he's very even-handed and intelligent and is able to speak out whatever he believes. Yeah,
because he just didn't take the side of the Brits. Yeah. That's really the problem here.
Okay, move on to the second, far more important than any of that, is this whole question of the royal interview that we're all going to get seen tonight on RT at 9 o'clock. No, half nine. I can hardly wait. I can hardly
it's 2 hours. Jude, look, I stood up. I have next to zero interest in the royal family. And that's not kidding. Well, watch this, by the way, just out of curiosity now. And I was listening to the Claire Byrne show on RT this morning, and she had, I can't remember the girl's name, she's the Washington correspondent for the Irish Times, and a guy called John McEntee, who's Irish but lives in Britain and is on the staff of the Daily Mail. And there were
Suzanne Lynch.
Suzanne Lynch. Well done, Jude. That's exactly who she was. Very good sister. And by the way, so she was basically saying, apparently poor Meghan said that she didn't realise that her life stopped being her own when she joined the royal family. They took away her passport, her driving licence, and her keys. And that basically she was even asked when she was pregnant what were her views on how dark the skin of the baby would be. She's half black, poor Meghan, in the sense that apparently you have to be pure white to be a member of the royal family. And so on. And Harry, I think Harry's basically saying, they did this to my mother, they're not going to do it to my wife. This sort of thing.
Well, you said that she really was taken aback that her keys were taken from her and her passport and so on. Did she not know? Do you really think she didn't know what she was getting into when she married your man?
I haven't a clue. What do you think? I see what he call him, Piers Morgan. The usual done. These spoiled brats and all that, doing this to our royal family, and the poor queen, where here she is with her husband on a near death door and all this sort of stuff, and you're going, good mercy. Hey, the girl, she's alleging that she was treated badly, that there was racism, that the whole thing, the royal family is almost, what would you say, sort of mind-numbingly, sort of control freaks, that you're expected to behave a certain way all the time. And that it's like Stepford Wives, and she couldn't take it.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing that gets me is, could you not have guessed at all that? Like, for example, the big revelation she had was that members of the royal family made queries about what color the baby would be. Could you not have guessed that without her ever saying that? I mean, I would be amazed. There would be a story if they didn't ask it.
Yeah, but you know as well as I do all the conspiracy theories about the real reason, the white card was never found in the tunnel in Paris after the lady died. Apparently, there was deep concern about the fact that she was might have been pregnant by Dodi Al-Fayed, and they couldn't possibly have that. So, Jude, I am saying nothing, and I'm not casting, but like the whole thing, Jude. What is they call it? The firm. And it's Jude. What is the Queen gets 70 million a year, and she lives in 5 houses. I think, Jude,
6.
Anyway, here's my view.
6.
There's something. 6. There's something wrong with any society where a hereditary royal family is considered superior to anybody else. It's Looney Tune stuff. It is absolute Looney Tune.
Well, it's one that the British people, for better or worse,
they love it. They love it. If you think about it for 2 seconds, some of the idiots
I would be the
greatest
complete
idiots have been members of the royal family, but go ahead.
You would never get a job. I mean, if you went in and said, look, my dad's so and so, I want this job,
Yeah,
you get it. You'd be at the door in your ear in the first thing.
yeah,
There's a couple of things about it that get me. I mean,
yeah.
this thing about the color of Archie, only an idiot would think that the royal family wouldn't ask that question. But of course they would, because, well, work it out. The other thing is she revealed that Kate made her cry rather
Not the other
than
way
she
around.
made Kate cry, for God's sake.
Straight out of the wee girl's playground. He made me cry. No, I made you. Right, okay.
Well, it's more seriously, she said she considered suicide, but
Yeah.
there's no evidence whether she did or not, but she says it. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll have to take her word for it.
Yeah, we'll take a word for it.
I'll tell you what's a fact though, and this didn't come up in the interview. Harry has done a bad thing. Many people feel he is no longer discharging his duties as a royal.
Yeah.
The average royal works 83.5 days a year.
Well, that's tough.
And that's, 1/3 of the normal working year for ordinary people.
Yeah.
Secondly, what are we talking about with work here? Work.
Yeah.
They go to some
hands and cutting a ribbon.
or they travel in luxury to Australia or Canada or somewhere else.
On royal flights and on first class. Yes, must be really tough.
And then they sit and watch some native people dancing or whatever. And then they smile and whisper something to each other, and then they'll point and they'll bow, and they'll just have a great time. I really don't know. I really don't know. How can people believe that that's service to a country? Seems to me crazy. But I'll tell you, the viewing figures on ITV tonight and RTE will be massive. And the thing that sort of dismays me is that the Republic of Ireland, the south of Ireland, which has rejected the notion of monarchy and has its own president elected, the figures will be massive. They'll be at least as high as they are in the north.
Jude, the whole concept of royalty is an anachronism. It belongs somewhere about the 12th or, way back before medieval times, whatever, primitive times, surely with education and with culture and with civilization, the concept of one family being royal, good. Go and think about it even for 10 seconds. And it's so insane. And so, but hey, it's, many years ago when I was doing an MA and journalism and communications, all this crap, one of the things we'd done was about society. And the claim one of the lecturers made, I always remembered, was that the royal family in Britain, he was an Englishman, he said that was the cement, the glue that held society together in Britain. He said, you might be black, but you like the royal family, you might be white, you might be Protestant, you might be Catholic, you might be Hindu, you might be anything. But the one thing that held everybody together was the royal family. And when the Queen went to the mosque, or when she went to the Catholic Church, or when she went to the opening of the FA Cup final, these were things everyone could be fused into, and that's, and an increasingly diverse society. The royal family was that sort of cement, the social cement that held, and that was quite important. And of course, Jude, for tourism, Jesus, half of London comes to, and they want to be pictured outside Buckingham Palace and the Royal Mile, or how you call it.
Yeah, well, I sort of agree with you on that, that it is something that so many people, English people certainly, have a sense of loyalty to them and admire them and so on. And people in places like the south of Ireland and the north of Ireland, they also love him, very interested in their little doings. In the States, there's a huge interest. I think it's a sort of a living fairy tale, or
that's it. This idea of why a lot of our fairy stories are about the beautiful princess and kissing the frog and all. It's part of our mythology, and it's so on. But it's complete bollocks, Yeah. Sorry.
Very harsh.
Yeah, that's a technical term, but you know what I mean.
Well, my own view is this, that Harry, by taking off with Meghan and living in Montecito, which I can tell you from personal experience is one of the most beautiful little towns just outside Santa Barbara. But apparently it's stiff with multi-millionaires and multi-millionaires. But anyway, he has taken off with his bride and he's living with the woman he loves in the States. Does that sound familiar?
Does it,
Edward the Seventh.
does it
Edward the
sound like
Seventh
a,
took off.
does it sound like a tough life?
It doesn't sound like a tough life, but it also rings in a historical note when Edward
Yeah.
the Seventh abdicated
Yeah.
because he couldn't live without the woman he loved, and they both
Yeah.
lived the rest of their days in the States.
Yeah.
And they had a sense of freedom, and they did all sorts of things. So
Yeah.
maybe it's just history repeating himself. I don't think this will do the monarchy a lot of good. And I heard Polly Toynbee on today, and she's a Republican, I gather, and she said, "Well, let's hope the Queen Elizabeth is a really good person and she worked hard and so on, but let's hope that as well as being Elizabeth II, she will be Elizabeth the Last." So that happy note passed. Okay,
Jude.
thanks, bye.
Catch you later.